quarter business plan time, and we are live at the Detroit Renaissance Center. That's right. For many of you that don't have any idea what that is, we're in the middle of our annual coaches retreat, and I am here in one of the great spaces in the beautiful General Motors headquarters. In fact, you can't see it, but behind me is the Detroit River, and on the other side of that is Canada. So we are here for a great 4 days with our coaches and then a day and a half for Prospecting Live. There's all kinds of stuff that we're doing here at Glover U this week to pour into our coaches and our invited guests who are all arriving as we speak. Our invited guests are those that we see a lot of potential in terms of leadership coaches. They're doing big things in their market and they're following the Glover U system in a big way. But that's not why you're here. You're here for the fourth quarter plan. And I know some of you are going to end up watching the replay. Some of you are going to end up listening to this on the podcast. But for now, let's go ahead and jump in. So first things first, make sure you get your hands on a physical copy of the plan. All right, they're going to drop that in the chat. You can check the chat right now for that. It's been emailed to you. We've probably sent it out a few times by now. So make sure you print off a physical copy of this the plan from start to finish. Now, in my opinion, here's why it's important. Without question, there's a lot of different business plans that we work on through the year. The fourth quarter plan, in my opinion, is just as important, if not more important, than the annual business plan. Yes, that's right. I know a lot of you are thinking, Jeff, how is that possible? Or that's probably just something you say about every single plan out there. Nope. I'll repeat that. That's how much I mean this. The fourth quarter plan is just as important, if not more important, than your annual plan. Why is that? Well, because at the end of the year, and for those But why is the fourth quarter plan just as important, or maybe even slightly more, Jeff? Because here's what I know about the fourth quarter. We have two opportunities in the fourth quarter. The first opportunity is to finish strong. No, you still have plenty of time left, probably not as much as you think. You have time left to finish strong. But more importantly, when I say it's just as important as your 23 years of selling real estate, 21 of those in leadership. Here's what I know. If you get off to a weak start to the year, if you get off to a soft start to the year, if you're not happy with accomplishing in the first couple months of the year, which is not uncommon. A lot of you have experienced a poor January or a poor February or a poor March. Why does that happen? It's because of your actions in the fourth quarter. Now, actually has a lot to do with our 2026 plan. But that doesn't mean the year is over yet. I meet so many agents that say, well, Jeff, I didn't hit my goals this year, but, at this point, let's just start thinking here. No. We've got time. You're going to see that. All right. So first things first, make sure you open up that fourth quarter plan. There's a couple quick resources I want to share with you. So on the first page, there's a few resources I want to make sure you get your hands on. All right. Number one, we've got a brand new resource. And I know a lot of you are saying, oh, Jeff, come on. I've been in your webinars. I did the summit webinars. I got all your resources. Nope, you don't have this one. We have a brand spanking new resource that we want you to get your hands on. And it is the pricing document and the price reduction document. This is exactly the dialogues that I'm having right now with sellers at the kitchen table. And it's also the dialogue that I'm having with sellers when I take the listing over price, because whether you mean to or not, sometimes it happens. And so this is the first time we've actually released the price reduction dialogue as well as the pricing discussion that happens at the kitchen table. So make sure you get your hands on it. Well, Jeff, how do I get my hands on it? Super simple. All right, take out your cell phones and open up your app store. Take out your cell phones and open up your app store, and you're going to search Glover space the letter U in your app store. You're going to want to make sure you have the Glover U app on your phone, because that's where we house all our free resources. There's things on our website right now that people are paying for that you can get for free on the app. This new document lives on the app. Make sure you have the Glover U app on your phone. All right. That's where you're going to find that document. The other thing I wanted to mention is every day, and most of you know this because I think we have over 26,000 subscribers now. Every day, we send a message. I send a message that I write every single morning to help you list and sell more real estate. Sometimes it's, I went on an appointment last night. Here's an objection I got from the seller, and here's how I handled it. In fact, last night I went on an appointment, didn't get the listing, and I got an objection. I already wrote my daily message for tomorrow or the next day to share that. Anyways, every day I'm writing something with you. I'm writing something for you to help you list and sell more homes. And leaders who are on, because I know we've got a lot of leadership on, I encourage you to take these daily messages and turn it into sales training topics to help your agents. For those of you that are not familiar or are joining us for the first time, I want to see where all drop in the chat if you're a first timer on a Glover U webinar. And while you're at it, let us know what city and state or city and province you're joining us from. Do me a favor, drop that in the chat right now for me if you would. I want to see all of our first timers. There we go. All right. It looks like we got a lot of first timers. Perfect, perfect. North Carolina in the house, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, awesome. Florida, love that. All right, Florida's joining us today. California, all right. Thanks for waking up a little earlier with us today. Anyway, so great to see all of our first timers. Thank you for being here. If I'm in your shoes, I might be wondering, why should I pay attention to what this Jeff Glover guy has to say? Why should I watch any of his webinars? There's so many options that we have today. I'm going to answer that in one sentence for you. It's because I'm in the trenches with you. Unlike the others who are talking about things they did 10, 20 years ago, or maybe not even discussed, maybe they've never sold a house before at all. I'm actually in it with you right now. I went on a listing appointment last night. Just to give you an idea, I'm averaging 7 to 10 listings per month myself personally, not even including what our team does, which is somewhere around 900 to 1,000 transactions a year with 32 salespeople. Do the math on that. 900, they did 982 last year with 32 salespeople. That's like 27 units per person. So if you had any questions about who you maybe should listen to or follow, and I know there's a lot of great options out there, I would consider the fact that I'm in it with you and I know exactly what you're going through. In fact, today, I don't even think of myself as a presenter or a trainer. Today, I got my real estate hat on, and I'm going to share with you my plan. All right, there's a whole bunch of other resources on there. Make sure you get your hands on those. That new resource, I wanted to make sure I got that out to you and make sure you're taking advantage of the daily message. All right, let's jump into the plan. We're going to start with part one. Now, I've only got an hour, so it may feel like I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. And if that's the case, I'm going to encourage, because we are going to send the replay out. I'm going to encourage you to go back and watch this. You can slow down. You can stop it. But I've got a lot of notes I'm going to share with you on how to best execute on this plan in the fourth quarter. So part one. So under part one, I want you to identify how you've done so far in these you're making per day. Well, maybe as we go into next year, this is something you should track. Why? Understand that every single one of us, even if you don't track your numbers, contact to closing ratio. Every single one of us has a contact to closing ratio. And so what does that mean? Well, what that means is if you know that your contact to closing ratio is, say, 50 contacts to a closing, you can figure out exactly to the number how many contacts you have to make in order to close X more homes each year. We'll talk about that in just a second. How many times have you reached out to your database this year? If you follow the Glover U formula, you know the times called per year is 4. 2 where we ask for business, 2 where we don't. 4 times per year, you're reaching out to your database. 2, you're calling and thanking them or adding value to them or inviting them to something. And 2, you're actually asking for business. If you follow our system or come to our stuff, you'll get, obviously, more of the database value proposition. But for now, you can go find our scripts. They're all online. They're free. Go download them. Next, how many mailers have you sent to the database so far this year? How many pieces of mail have you sent? If you follow the Glover U system, which, oh, by the way, in the Glover U system, we teach agents to get 8% return on their database. That number used to be 10. There's actually other companies out there saying that that number should be 6%. Not ours, because we're getting 8%. So if you want to get an 8% return on your database, which means for every 100 people in your database, that's 8 transactions annually, I would encourage you to get your hands on our database plan. How about client events? How many client events have you hosted so far this year? If you follow the Glover U system, we teach 2 client events per year. So if you haven't done any yet, perhaps maybe in the fourth quarter would be a time to do one. Open houses held. How many open houses did you hold this year? This could give us a good indication of whether you have a strength in open houses or if you're struggling with open houses. Is there an opportunity for us to improve your skills with open houses? How are you doing there? Listings sold, listings closed, buyers sold, buyers closed. Pretty self-explanatory. And then next, I want to know your average closings per month in 2025. And I want to know the number of closings in your best month this year. And here's why. Okay, the fourth quarter is a perfect opportunity to hit the reset button, even if it's just for a couple months. And the best way to set a new goal and hit a reset button when you only have a little bit of time left is to do this activity. I do this activity with myself all the time, usually during the fourth quarter, because it's likely that you're going to fall a little bit behind, or you might be behind in the fourth quarter and you're going to use this time to get caught up. So instead of saying, well, Jeff, my goal this year was to sell 40 homes, I'm at 30, so my goal is 10 in the fourth quarter. I'm not necessarily saying that that's the best way to do it, because what's the likelihood that you're going to sell 10 homes with like 50 working days left? I don't know. You tell me. I mean, 10 goes into 50. How many times? That means you're doing a transaction essentially, once per week? How many weeks are in there, right? So if you're like, well, I'm not averaging once per week right now, well, then it's going to be difficult to hit that. So then, Jeff, how do I set a goal in the fourth quarter that's achievable? Best piece of advice. Ready? You take a look at what you've done so far. We have 9 months of data, right? You have January through September. How many of you closed in that time period? You take that number, or written. It doesn't matter if it's written or closed. I mean, if you want to do written, that's fine too. How many did you write or close in that time period? Divide that number by 9. All right. Obviously, if you've done 9 deals, let's just say, through September, you're doing 1 deal per month. I want to know about how many average deals you're doing per month. Now, for sake of example, I just wrote, I'm averaging 2 per month. Okay. Maybe you're averaging 5 a month, maybe you're averaging 10 a month, whatever it is. For sake of example, I said I'm averaging 2. So then, okay, then that means I need to identify what month was my best month ever. That was the month of May. Okay, how many did you do in the month of May? I wrote down 4. All right, so of all the months this year, that was the month of May, you did 4 deals. Is that right? Yep, that's right. Okay, good. Now, why is that important? Well, because anytime you look at those 2 categories, when you're thinking about what's a reasonable monthly number, I want you to split the difference between those 2. If you're averaging 2, your best month was 4, I want you to pick a number in the middle. In this case, that'd be 3. Why is that? Well, because watch. Here 1 time, maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times even, because maybe you tied, but they were spread out. The whole point of this activity is I want you to think about what is the likelihood that you're going to have your best month ever 3 months in a row. Probably not high. It's not impossible. It's definitely doable, but it would take a lot of intense changes. So what I'd recommend you do instead, you take a look at how your average performance is, and you split the difference between your best performance and your average performance, and that's your new monthly goal. Total units closed, total volume closed, total income paid. Pretty self-explanatory. Over on the right-hand side is now we're looking at conversion ratios. And obviously, if you know your numbers on the left, you're going to be able to put some of this together. So the one thing that you may have a little confusion on is, okay, set to sat. That means you went on the appointment. You set it versus going on it, because not every appointment you go on obviously agrees to meeting with you. What about the fallout ratio? What does fallout ratio mean, Jeff? Well, typically, the United States and Canada has had, well, U.S., forgive me, because Canada's, the way they close their transactions are a little different. Typically in the United States, we have about a 15% fallout ratio. Right now, that's over 20%. Over 20% of deals that are going pending are not making it to the closing table. Something to pay attention to when you're thinking about how many deals I need to write in order to get a number to the closing table. Because if every deal I write is not closing, then I might need to write more deals than I thought. I got to know what my current closing ratio, or I'm sorry, my fallout ratio is right now. Next, how many listings do I have in active inventory? This is going to help me put together my fourth quarter plan, because think about it. If I've got 10 listings in inventory and I want to do 10 more deals between now and the end of the year, well, I've already got a good head start. Even if only 5 of them sell, I don't need to go out and get 10. I need just 5 more, right? So knowing my active inventory is going to help me with crafting my fourth quarter plan. Listing on the market for 30 days or more. Why would it be important to know what's been on the market for 30 days or more? Well, because here's what I know. If it's been on the market for more than 2 weeks, it's probably overpriced. I've lived by this rule, by the way. 23 years in sales, 21 of them in leadership. I've averaged over 100 sales a year, 10 years in a row, personally, not including the team. So here's what I know. Okay, mostly listings, by the way, 70% listings my entire career. Here's what I know. If I've got a listing on the market for more than 14 days, it's most likely overpriced. And if I've got a listing on the market for over 30, it's guaranteed to be overpriced. So if I identify how many listings I've had on the market for more than 30 days, then I need to know exactly, okay, at this point, I've got 10 listings, 5 of them have been on the market for more than 30 days. I got to write a plan to get those 5 reduced. Otherwise, they're not selling. I got to write a plan to get those 5 reduced, or they're not going to be part of my sales plan. Contact to closing ratio. How many deals are you, how many contacts are you making per transaction? This is important. If you're tracking your numbers, you're going to know this. If not, you're going to have to estimate. By the way, to give you a kind of a rule of thumb, I use these numbers 50, 100, and 150. 50 contacts per closing is considered pretty good. All right. If you're making 50 contacts to a closing in real estate, that's considered pretty good. 100 is probably considered average, or maybe slightly above average. 150 is considered below average. All right. So you're probably somewhere in that range. For sake of example, I wrote down I'm averaging 100 contacts per closing. That's going to be important later. You'll see where that comes back in. Let's back the price reduction routine between now and year's end. You see there's 5 blank spaces for you, those 5 lines. Well, what do you want me to do with that, Jeff? Well, if you identified how many homes you've had on the market for more than 30 days, I need to write a plan to get them reduced. So I wrote in scheduled time on Fridays for price reductions. I call it Price Reduction Fridays, without question the best day to get reductions. I wrote in schedule every 10 days or every 2 Fridays. So if you have a lot of listings, you might have to make these calls every Friday. If you don't have a huge inventory, you make them every other Friday. I wrote down pull stats. Okay, whether I get them from my MLS or if I get them from Showing Time or wherever I get them, I wrote down pull stats because when I'm having conversations with sellers, I have to be able to share with them the listing inventory is sitting longer because they all want to fight and argue that things are still moving just fine. Next, I wrote down practice my price reduction scripts. All right, I just gave you the free resource. That free resource I gave you, the price reduction resource, you should be downloading that. You should be writing it out. You should be chanting it. You should be role-playing it. All right, let's go to part 2. Part 2 is the 4th quarter goals. All right, we've got listings and BBAs, buyer broker agreements. So that essentially those are contracts. We have pendings, which not every market calls them the same. Here in Detroit, we call them pending sales. So pendings means a pending sale. So if you want to look at it like this, you've got contracts, meaning before it's sold, before the buyer buys, but they wrote an offer. You have a listing taken, but it hasn't sold yet. Pendings are things that are under contract, right? A deposit is in. And then, of course, closings. Everyone knows what that is. So when I'm writing out my goals, I have to take into consideration all of what I wrote down in part 1. So for sake of example, if I know in my mind, I'm just going to say I want to do 8 more transactions between now and the end of the year. Follow along with me real quick. If I want to do 8 more transactions between now and the end of the year, averaging 100 contacts to a closing, that means between now and the end of the year, or the end of the real estate year, because there's a difference there. We'll talk about that in a second. You guys mostly know that. That means I have to make 8,000 contacts, 8 more deals. 800 more contacts, between now and the end of the year. If I'm averaging if I'm averaging 100 per. All right, so 800 more contacts. But wait a minute, Jeff, that sounds kind of like a lot. Well, we'll do the math on that in just a second, okay? So if I want to do 8 more deals, then I need to identify how many contracts am I going to need? How many pendings am I going to need? So I wrote down closings, 2, 3, 3. That's going to get me to 8. Okay, and I know my conversion ratio of how many make it to a closing table. So for pendings, I wrote down 4, 4, 4. That's going to get me to 11. And for listings and BBAs, I wrote down 6, 6, 4. That gets me to 16. Because I know if I sign 16 contracts based on my ratios, I'm going to get 11 sold and 8 of them closed. All right, so you'll see where the contacts come back into play here in a second. So go ahead and turn the page. We're going to go to part 3 of the business plan. Let's look at the expectations to achieve the goals now. So I first need to come up with a daily contact goal. All right. So who can tell me in the chat if I need to make 800 more contacts between now and the end of the year? And watch this number. I'm going to fast forward just because you're going to need this. So take out your calculators, do some quick math for me. If I need to make 800 contacts between now and the end of the year, and I have 43 days left to do it, how many times does 43 go into 800? Somebody help me out in the chat on that one. How many times does 43 go into 800? Okay, you're going to see why that's important in a second here. Okay, 19, yeah, it's like 18 and some change. So we'll round up, we'll call it 19. So then that means that in order for me to sell 8 more homes this year, I need to make 19 contacts a day. All right, well, let's take a look at my ratios. If I make 18 contacts a day, based on how many contacts I'm making and how many appointments I'm setting, I did the math already, I have to set 3 per week. I need to go on 2 per week, which means I need 1.5 contracts per week. Now, how do you make a 1.5 contract? What that means is some weeks I can get 1, some weeks I can get 2, right? It has to balance out to 1.5 contracts per week. All right, so I know my numbers. I got my numbers figured out, right? When I think of part 1, 2, 3, it's all numbers. Now let's start looking at some actions in part 4. And the first action I need to identify is, what is an activity that I said I was going to do, or that I know I'm capable of doing, or that I know I've been putting off, that I actually, had I done it, I would be closer to my goal. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you're going to do this activity in the fourth quarter. The idea is I want you to go back and revisit any business plan that you wrote for this year, all right? If you came to our retreat in June, you wrote a 6-month plan. Go back to that. I bet you wrote something that you know would help your business that you completely forgot or didn't get to. And I want you to identify what that is. There's 2 reasons why I want you to identify it. Number 1, because if it's something you can take action on before the end of the year, I want you to do it. But the other reason why I'm going to have you write it down right here in this part of the plan is because when you do your 2026 plan with me, I'm going to ask you to go back to part 4 in this plan and say, what did you write down for your roadblock that got in your way that you know had you done it, it would have made a difference in your business and in your life? And I'm going to say, did you do it? And if the answer is no, now it's going to be part of your 2026 plan. So if you can accomplish it in 3 months, let's just get started on it now. All right, let's go to part 5. In part 5, I want you to double down on what's working. I want to make it very clear in the fourth quarter. Hear me loud and clear on this. This isn't the time to trial and error a new source of business. This isn't a time to sign up for something new. This isn't a time to say switch from for sale by owners to expireds because you think maybe expireds would be better for you. No, follow this rule. No new sources in the fourth quarter, all right? We introduce new sources in the annual plan, and we introduce new sources in the mid-year plan, never in the fourth quarter, because you just saw in the example I gave with the contacts, we don't have as many days left as we think. So no new sources. Instead, I want you to identify what's working right now. See, what you think is working right now may be totally different than what you think has been working for you your entire career. In other words, you might be thinking, well, hey, I've been more of a database agent. You know, I get all business, past clients, sphere of influence, whatever. And then your last 3 out of 5 transactions may have came from open houses. And that means you're doing something right with open houses. And I want to identify where the majority, here's what part 5 is all about. Identify where the majority of your most recent closings have come from. In other words, the last 5 closings, where they come from. Sphere of influence, past clients. I wrote down sphere of influence, past clients. I wrote down open house. I wrote down sphere of influence, referral. I wrote down an internet lead. I wrote down past client referral. So when I look at those 5, well, based on the above, if I double down on database, which is past client, sphere of influence, I can generate more closings. I want you to do that activity, part 5. Why? Because then on the right side of this page, you'll notice every page in the business plan, minus the couple ads that are in here, every page in the business plan has a blank page right next to it. This is for additional notes. This is for additional thoughts as you're going through it. For me, after part 5 there, on that next page, I'm going to write down a plan to double down on my database. Now, it just so happens that I'm asking you for your fourth quarter database plan in this plan. You're going to see that in a second. So I wouldn't necessarily need to do that because that's actually in the plan. But if you wrote down open house and I don't address open house anywhere else in this plan, then on this blank page, I want you to write down specifically what else you can do to get more business from open houses. Whatever your most recent or the majority of them, that's how we're choosing the source to double down on in the fourth quarter. All right, we've talked about double down through the years quite often, and now I want you to double down on your last 5 transactions. On the most prominent of your last 5 transactions in the fourth quarter. Okay, let's go to the next page. I'm on page 10 in the business plan. We're talking about the calendar activity. Probably one of the most important parts of the plan, in my opinion, because it's a little bit of a reality check. Well, what makes it a reality check? Well, the reality check is we always think as salespeople, listen, I'm as classic of a salesperson as you are, all right? We always think 2 things. We always think we have more time than we really have, and we always think we can turn it on when we need to, all right? Am I right? Like, come on, you've been there with me, all right? Tell me in the chat if you've ever felt like you have more time than you thought, And or if you thought you could turn it on if you needed to. Like, yep, I can turn this thing on. I can turn this around. I can turn this year around. I got plenty of time. Ever have those thoughts? It's natural as salespeople to have those thoughts. So I call the calendar activity the reality check, because the reality is you don't have as much time as you think. Okay, I've already done this activity for myself. I went through, you may not be able to see it, but I went through and put X's on the days I'm taking off. I put like a half an X, right? The first line of the X on the days I'm taking half days. So of course, many of you know I take every Sunday off. I don't work Sundays, and I'm taking I'm basically taking 2 Saturdays off per month between now and the end of the year. Obviously, you got a couple holidays in there as well. So when I do some quick math, all right, if you figure you're taking a couple Saturdays off in October, a couple Saturdays off in November, obviously a couple days for the holiday in November, that works out to 43 working days for me left in the year. 43. Now, remember where I said those contacts per day? That's where it comes from, because I don't have until the end of December. I only have to the end of November. Closes in Jan-Feb, which is, by the way, the reason why most agents have a poor Jan-February is because they're actually not identifying what days they're working in December, which is the other part of this page and why I love this activity, because here's what's nice, okay? You definitely don't feel guilty about the days you're taking off because you committed to take them off. But here's what happens. I'll just give you a for instance. On December the 31st, which is Eve, I have a half line through that. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to go into the office like I would any other Wednesday, even though it's New Year's Eve, and I'm going to probably work until 1 or 2 o'clock. I'm going to take a half day. Pick up on the morning of the 31st and say, nobody's in the office today. The staff's off. No one's going in. I don't need to go in. Wait a minute. No. I committed to a half day. So it actually works as an accountability tool as well. So it's a reality check and accountability tool. So for me, I got 43 days. By the way, leaders watching this, if you lead a team, you lead a brokerage, you should be doing the same thing when you think about how many days you have left to recruit. Jeff, I wanted to add 40 agents to our company this year, and I got 3 months left. I'll be fine. No, you don't, because if you know anything about recruiting, the cycle is almost the same as listing and selling real estate. What you do in December as it relates to recruiting is probably not going to show up until January or February. Right? When you come to our lead up event, for our leaders that come to the event, we teach the Plax model for leaders. It's almost identical to the Plax model for listing agents. So leaders, you might want to consider doing this same activity to figure out how many days you have left to recruit the number that you committed to recruiting this year. All right, let's go to the next page. Part 7 in the plan. Here's the fall database plan. The reason why this is part of the plan, because I don't care whether expires are your first source of business, open houses, internet leads, social media, everyone has a database, all right? The people that follow you on social media are in your database. The people that follow you on Instagram are in your database. So in this particular case, I'm going to write out a plan to double down on my, now for me, database was my number one source. So remember I said, for me, it's going to work out because I addressed database later in the plan. But if expireds were your number one source, then further back in the plan, you're going to write a quick double down plan on expireds. And what I'm asking you to do in addition to that is write out a database plan. So why is that? Well, because I know what I'm going to do to the database in the fourth quarter is going to help me not only in the fourth quarter, but it's going to help me start strong next year. See, this is the mistake a lot of agents make. They put all their eggs in the basket of the spring or the summer with their database. They do everything in the spring and summer. I'll kick it off the spring because that's when everyone's moving. The problem with that is you get busy in the summer. You would have been busy anyways. You would have been busy with internet leads in the summer. You would have been busy with open houses no matter what. But what about January, February? Why is there always a low in January, February? Because you're not doing anything for your database in the fourth quarter. So moving forward, we're going to stop that. I want you to identify what's one event that you can do between now and the end of the year. Identify that event. I know a lot of you do pie giveaways. All right, let me give you a quick tip on an event. If you're going to do an event, it needs to have you need to have staying power. Staying power. What does that mean? That means people need to stick around the event for a bit. You need to have face time with your sphere of influence, face time with your past clients. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they do these pie giveaways is they drive up and they toss it in their car. They drive up, they come in, how you doing? Hope things are well. Hope you have a good holiday season. Here you go. That's not enough face time. So if you're going to do a pie event, and I'm just using that example, I'm not suggesting everyone go out and do pie events, but if you're going to do one, turn it into a 2, 3, 4 hour event where there's stuff for the kids to do, there's cheese and wine for the parents. Keep them around. You got to have more FaceTime at your events. All right. We always do an apple orchard event. A handful of our agents do that every year, and they love those, you know, cider, pumpkin, all that good stuff, pumpkins. Event, I also wrote down, I have an invite, email, and text for the event. So that's what I wrote down in line number 2. Okay, so this is my database plan, by the way. I've got an apple orchard event and a pie giveaway. So we actually have 2. I wrote down invite, email, and text for the event. I wrote down Thanksgiving call, because I'm going to call everyone in my database, wish them a happy Thanksgiving, thank them for their business and continued referrals. And I wrote down holiday mailer. Holiday mailer. Every year I'm going to send out a mailer. This year's no different. Send out a mailer. A little fridge magnet calendar with, you know, the cheesy ones that have been around for years. January, February, March, right? They tear off. Here's the tip. I got 2 tips on this. Number 1, you have to get the kind today that have the adhesive strip on the back. All right. If you don't get the kind with the adhesive strip, it's going to fall off the front of the fridge. Number 1. Number 2, it's got to be out by December the 1st. If you don't have it out by December 1, somebody else is already going to be on the fridge and yours is going to go in the trash. All right. So what are 3 or 4 things in the 4th quarter that you can do to add value to your database? Part 8, new morning schedule. All right. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. I'm not going to tell you what time to wake up. I'm not going to tell you what time to go to bed. Here's what I will tell you. If you want to have a strong 4th quarter, which means you're going to start next year strong, here's what I know. You will not have a significant increase in business without substantial changes to your morning routine, period. Can you do a little bit more business? Of course. Can you tweak a few things and end up with a few more closings? Always. But you're not gonna have a breakthrough quarter. You're not gonna have the best quarter of your life without some significant changes to your morning routine. So for some of you, yeah, maybe it is waking up earlier. For others, maybe it is making the decision that we've taught you all along, and that's the morning is for finding business, the afternoon is for servicing it. All right, all the sayings have been around, own the morning, win the day. We have a definition for that, and that is the mornings for finding business. So stop scheduling closings, walkthroughs, inspections, admin, paperwork, stop setting your highest and bests for Monday at 10 a.m. You're guaranteed you're working on your offer Monday at 11. That offer's not going anywhere. Set it for Monday at 3. Anyways, you're going to have to write a new morning routine if you want to have an increase in business. Days in the office, I wrote down 5 because why? I'm a full-time realtor. I should be coming in every single day. Obviously, on the Saturdays, it'll be 6. Okay, you're going to see that here in a second. Next, turn the page. Part 8. My new morning schedule for the weekend. Now, some of you love taking Saturdays off, but you work Sundays. Some of you are like me. You refuse to work a Sunday, but you work Saturdays. I don't care which one you pick. Here's what I know. In real estate, there's going to be some weekend days. It's either going to be some Saturdays a month or some Sundays a month. I tell people all the time, whether you like it or not, we signed up for business hours plus retail hours. If you think about real estate, we have business hours and retail hours. So therefore, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write out a new morning routine for the weekend. You guys have heard me say this a million times now. I want you to treat your Saturday or your Sunday no different than a Wednesday. Now, it doesn't have to be every Saturday. You heard, I'm taking 2 Saturdays off per month. So on the Saturdays that you commit to work, and that's where it says days in office, I wrote down 2 per month in mine. On the days that I'm committing to work, here's what my schedule is going to look like. Why is this important? Well, because most of you, you're available. What do you mean, Jeff? I work weekends. I work Saturday. I work Sunday. Well, I get it. I'm with you on that. I work Saturday as well. But the thing is how dialed in is your actual routine? Or are you just kind of waiting for things to fall in your lap? Are you just doing showings? Are you just doing walkthroughs? Are you just doing, inspections? Or are you actually going into the office purposefully, going out and making contacts to set appointments? That's part 8. Part 9, Midway Mayday. Got to have this as part of the plan. You guys see it in some of our business plans. We've brought it back for the 4th quarter plan. This is where I have to identify what is my monthly sales goal. Well, my goal this month is 4. All right, I want 4 sales for the month. All right, meaning the rest of the year. So then if I'm not halfway there by the 15th, I will commit to the following, which, by the way, if my goal is 4 per month, then I need to be at 2 by the 15th. Okay, so I've identified that. My goal is 4. So if I'm at 2 by the 15th, I'm good. Midway Mayday doesn't kick in. No changes. I get to continue with the rest of the month and my normal routine. However, if my goal is 4 and I've only got 1 by the 15th, well, now something's got to change because I am way off track. And so that's where Midway Mayday kicks in. So if I'm not to the halfway point, here's what I'm going to suggest you do. I want you to identify just 3 things. Just identify 3 things that you're going to be doing differently in the second half of the month that you didn't do in the first half. Just 3 things, okay? So that first one might be, I wrote down, I'm going to do 1 call night a week till the end of the month, all right? Wednesday nights, if by the 15th I'm not halfway to my written deal goal, Wednesday nights, I'm going to stay in the office from 6 until 8 p.m. because I'm working till 6 anyways. So I'm going to stay in the office from 6 until 8 p.m. and I'm going to do a call night for 2 hours. I'm going to do that no matter how many Wednesdays are left in the month. If there's 3 left, I'm doing it 3, right? If it's one of those months that ends, I'm going to do it 3. If there's 2, I'm going to do those 2 from 6 to 8. Next, I wrote down, I'm going to door knock twice weekly. It's got to be painful. The goal of this is to be painful. So I'm going to door knock twice per week if I'm not halfway to my goal. Okay, I don't love door knocking, but I know it's effective. And it's a penalty. The idea is for like a little bit of a penalty, but if you do these things, you know you'll get results from them. And then finally, here's the worst penalty. If my goal is 4, if I'm not at 2 by the 15th, I'm going to work every Saturday until the end of the month. So remember I said I'm going to take every other Saturday off? That's out the window. I no longer get that benefit unless I'm halfway to my goal. That's what Midway Mayday is supposed to look like as an example. All right, turn the page. Let's go to part 10 in the business plan. Part 10 in the business plan is what is in my mindset medicine cabinet. Okay. This is, while we talk a lot about mindset, this is actually a newer piece to the plan. And this actually stems from, over the last 30, 60 days, we've had a lot of things happen around the world and including here in the US. I know, of course, we've got a lot of great friends on from Canada and other parts as well. We've had a lot of things happen, a lot of tragedies, things that definitely were like unthinkable stuff. And they were things that caused us to be maybe more distracted than we would normally be, because we were not necessarily getting involved in, back and forth thoughts of everything. Everybody wanted to share their thoughts on what took place. And some of you got involved with it, and that's fine. Listen, I'm not suggesting you don't speak your mind. However, I want to know in the last 30, 45 days, and you don't have to answer this out loud and don't put it in the chat by any means, but how much time did you spend consuming media, consuming what you saw on social media, consuming news versus maybe a typical month? I bet every single one of us, that number was up slightly because it was just everywhere. And so since we sometimes can't avoid it, I want you to write a plan for your mindset medicine cabinet. How can maybe we can't avoid everything, but how can we improve our mindset when there's so much bad going on in the world? And so I wrote down a couple things. Number 1, moving forward, I'm going to identify 1 pod per week, 5 days per week, right? These are just sample things you can do. 1 podcast per week, per day, 5 days a week. They're only 20 to 30 minutes. Chances are you're going to be in the car for 20, 30 minutes a day going somewhere, whether it's to the gym, whether it's to the grocery store, whether it's to your office. 1 podcast per day. YouTube, what YouTube channels could you follow? What YouTube videos could you watch? Things that are uplifting. What books could you read? I also wrote down what needs to be removed from your mindset medicine cabinet. Is it possible you have a bottle of Tylenol in there or something that's going to be less effective? AKA, are you watching too much news? Are you paying too much attention to what's going on social media? You guys have heard me say plenty of times before as we go through business plans, spend less time consuming content and more time creating it. Think about it. If you spent as much time creating content as you spend consuming it, how much bigger would your business be today? You all know the answer to that. You don't have to answer that. You know your business would be bigger if you spent more time creating content and less time consuming it. So then why don't you do it? It all goes back to, we talked about it this morning with our coaches. How bad do you want it? What price are you willing to pay? You either don't understand why you want it, or you do understand why you want it, but you're not willing to pay the price. It's usually one of those two things. Number 11, what is one thing you said you wanted to do this year in these three categories that you have not gotten to yet? Okay. Maybe you had a personal health goal. Maybe you had a personal wealth goal. Okay. I wrote down for myself, my goal was to get back to 250 pounds by my wedding. I only got to 255. And now I'm back up to 260, thanks to the honeymooning and everything else that's taking place after that. So I got to get back to 250 by year's end. All right. What's your wealth goal? I wrote down a number of dollars I want to have in my savings account by the end of the year. What is your number? Professional. I wrote down master pricing dialogue at the kitchen table with sellers and price reduction calls. Maybe that's something you on. If you've been doing this for a long time, you had to do price reduction calls often 10 plus years ago. So you maybe got a little rusty on those. We got to brush up on our skills. Again, go get the free resource. It's the hottest resource out available today. Professional. Well, I said I wanted to increase my average sales price. Okay, this is your opportunity to write how you can do that between now and the end of the year. What about technology or AI? Okay, perhaps you should sign up, not just use the Chat GPT free account, but sign up for the actual one. Why is that, Jeff? Is it enhanced features? No, because it needs to learn about you. Listen, at the Live Unreal Summit in January, we're going to be the first training and coaching company to outline a plan of how to use AI to generate leads consistently. Everyone's been talking about using AI to make their lives easier, and it can do this for you, and it can think for you, it can do, there's a lot of great things, and we love it. Trust me, don't get me wrong, we use it in our marketing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we've been using AI for. But no one has yet to release a plan that they've mastered. See, here's the difference. You're going to have trainers and coaches that rip off other trainers and coaches' material. Our material is going to be based on what we're having success with right now. And between now and the end of the year, we are going to prove that you can generate leads from AI at a high level. And we're going to teach you that at the summit this January. That's not something most, if any, coaches can say. Why? Because they're not in the trenches like we are. Next, I want you to audit your online reviews, because if I want AI to recommend me more, then I need to make sure my online reviews are not only good, but fresh. All right. Maybe I need to upload. Maybe I said I was going to do one video per week and I haven't done that. I want to do that between now and the end of the year, because you understand AI is going to be getting its information from the spoken word. Just like Google gets its information from websites and blogs and things that are written. Think of Google gets their information from written word. AI will eventually get their information from spoken word. Let's get ahead of the game on that. And then how about, you know what I said? I wanted to get better at writing stories with my social media. Anyways, this is where you write down the things that you know you need to do in these three categories, and you have time to do them. Go ahead and turn the page. We're on part 12 of the business plan. Last couple parts of the plan. We're doing perfect on time. We're going to end right at the top of the hour. So part 12, when I hit the goal I've outlined for myself, I will reward myself and my family by doing the following. And I want you to write on the right-hand side, on this page here of blank lines, I want you to write the following question. Please write this down. What would make this holiday season, regardless of what you celebrate, what would make this holiday season the most unreal holiday my family and I have ever experienced? What would make this holiday season the most unreal? Remember the definition of unreal. Okay, if you've been following us or you come to our events, you understand it. To live a life so amazing, it's almost unbelievable. What would make this your most unreal holiday season ever? I mean, don't give me the classic stuff. Don't give me something you did 5 years ago. Don't tell me about something cool you did 10 years ago. I mean, what is going to make it the most unreal? Jeff, you know, it's been a while since I've taken my family here. I'd love to take the family to Hawaii for the holidays. You know, that's going to be a $10,000 or $15,000 trip. I'm not in a position to do it right now, but that's definitely something I could see myself doing if I hit my goals between now and the end of the year. Because you don't have if here's what I know. If you have a time management problem or a work ethic problem, do you know where that stems from? It stems always from not knowing and being crystal clear of why you're doing it. You don't have a time management problem. You have a why problem. You don't have a work ethic problem. You have a lack of understanding why you're doing this day in and day out. You can figure out the why. You can figure out why you're doing this day in and day out. You'll get there early. You'll make the contacts. You'll show up early. You'll stay late. if you can figure that part out now. So what I love about this part of the plan, I'm giving you 3 things. You want to write down 5 or 6, you can do that too. I'm giving you 3 opportunities to write down. I wrote down, hey, maybe a trip to Disney with your family. It's going to cost 10 grand though, Jeff. You know, I want the fast passes. I want this hotel. I want that. I got 3 kids, whatever it is. Okay. How much will it cost? 10 grand. How many deals will it take you to get to 10 grand? 2. Okay. Write that down. How about another experience, Jeff? We want to host the holidays at our home this year. And in order to do that, we want to do some remodels around the house. You know, we just want to get, we just want to update some light fixtures or whatever. Okay, how much is it going to cost? 5 grand. Okay, how many deals will it take? 1, right? This is where you write down the stuff you want to do. Jeff, I would love to get a new bag or a new watch for my spouse or significant other. Okay, how much is it going to cost? How many deals is it going to take? I want you to identify what in your mind would make it an unreal holiday experience, and not one that compares to the others, one that's above the top of what you've experienced in a holiday before. Identify what that is, write that out, and identify how many deals it'll take. Because for me, I wrote down 2 deals, 1 deal, 1 deal. Okay, there's 4. Remember, I want to do 8 between now and the end of the year. I'm good. I do 8 between now and the end of the year. I'm fine. Now, some of you are going to do this, and you're going to have to go back and revise your plan, right? You might get to this. I would almost recommend, by the way, kind of goes back to my time management, my work ethic comment. I would almost recommend you do this part of the plan first. Because if you do this part of the plan first, then you'll know exactly how many deals you need to do when we go back and write those out. But what I don't want you to do is come up with some outlandish things and it ends up being 27 transactions and you've only done 13 for the year. It's not going to work, all right? So be reasonable when you do that. If you hit your goals, how are you going to spend it? What experiences are you going to give? What purchases you're going to make? What investments you're going to? How are you going to spend it? How are you going to put yourself in a position to have more time with your family? What is that going to take? And then finally, part 13. What is my 6-month training and development commitment plan? What is my 6-month training and development commitment plan? Well, I've given a few examples along the way. For some of you, like for instance, I wrote down, I need to get back to role playing 30 minutes per day. What am I going to role play? Well, I might role play the expired script since there's expireds in every market across the US and Canada right now. I might do 30 minutes a day watching videos on social media, how to get better at social media. I want to watch 1 30-minute video a day on how to get better on social media. That's going to build my skills. I wrote down January 12th through the 15th. Just write it down. I'll explain what it is in a second. January 12th through the 15th. I wrote down, Jeff, I am not going to miss the Live Unreal Summit this year. All right. You've been hearing about our events. You've been hearing the buzz. Okay, we just shared with our coaches yesterday of the top 5 training and coaching organizations in the country. This year, 2025, of the top 5, you think of the biggest names. We fall into that category, by the way, that's based on audience size and client count. Of the top 5, there's only 1 that has had an increase in client count. There's only 1 that has had an increase in attendee count at events. Our client and event count is going up. 4 out of 5 went down in 2025. We're the only one that went up. I wonder why that is. Perhaps you should consider for the first time giving us a chance if you haven't yet. And I bet there's people in the chat right now, if I asked, hey, have you been to one of our events before? What makes it different? In fact, let's just do that. If you're on this right now, and you've been to one of our events before, just explain to the rest of the people that have said, they're dipping their toes in and they attend the free webinars and maybe they watch the YouTube or actually came to an event because, my brokerage puts on events. I don't need to go to those events. My franchise puts on events. I don't need to go to Jeff's events. I'm staying ahead of the game by going to my brokerage stuff. Are you though? There's a reason why we're the fastest growing training and coaching company on the planet. Perhaps you should come find out why. If you have no idea what our events are like and you want to see what we're going to be doing this January, check out this video.
You can't wing your way to the best year of your career. And if this year is any indication of what 2026 will look like, you need a plan. You need direction. You need to be in this room.
My business has doubled, literally doubled.
It is a game changer. It will change your life. It will change your business. And it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
This January, we're kicking off 2026 in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And if you're serious about selling more homes, hitting the goals you've been chasing, and living your unreal life, you need to be here.
I'm hitting records that I've never hit before. I'm breaking through limiting barriers I've never had.
This is the Live Unreal Summit, the event that will launch your year with clarity, purpose, confidence, and a plan that actually works.
So many life-changing aha moments.
Being in rooms with like-minded agents who are focusing on getting better.
We'll give you the exact systems, tools, strategy, and the mindset required to grow in any market, no matter what the headlines say. This isn't fluff, this is tactical. This isn't stuff agents did 5 years ago. This is the stuff my team and I, and literally thousands of Glover U clients around North America are winning with today.
Do it. It is 3.5 days, action-packed of motivation, inspiration, pages of tactical strategies that I can implement.
With some of the other events that I've been to in the past, it always seems like what's on stage is for show. Jeff puts on stage is what's going to actually help you make money and be successful in a difficult and challenging market.
I invite you to join us at this January's Live Unreal Summit in Scottsdale, Arizona at the beautiful Westin Kierland Resort.
Better to go big and really take in all the content, all the fun. You won't regret it.
If you want to actually be successful in this business, you need to put yourself in rooms with other people that are successful. If you want to be mediocre and average, keep doing what you're doing.
So the question is, are you going to drift into 2026? Or are you going to grab the reins and drive your business forward? Secure your seat, set the tone for your year, surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, and make your unreal life your reality. We'll see you this January.
All right, there you have it. So here's the deal. Do not go buy a ticket right now without using that code on your screen. I'm giving you all $100 off for this year's Live Unreal Summit. You're going to join me, Jesse Cole, who, if you're not familiar, it is the hottest trend since sliced bread right now with his banana ball. He'll be joining me on stage. We're going to have a great conversation about how he is inventing or reinventing the game of baseball, so we can talk about how to reinvent the game of real estate. We're going to draw a lot of parallels and a lot of connections between that, because at the end of the day, how you stand out in your market moving forward matters. And we're going to be discussing that with the guy who has mastered that at a high level right now. We're also going to be unveiling, for the first time in several years, the new Glover U listing appointment. We've made some changes to our listing appointments right now. So when we go on appointments today, we're still averaging 65 to 70% listings gone on to listings taken. We're going to share the new listing appointment, totally new listing appointment. You haven't seen it yet, and you won't see it until we're live together in January at the summit. We're also going to be every single day having a segment on how to generate leads using AI. We're not going to talk about, you need to download this app, you need to download this tool, you need to do that. Okay, and by the way, there might be some tools that you need, don't get me wrong, but our focus every single day will be, here's how you generate listing leads using AI. All right. You're also going to get the 2026 business plan. It's going to have some changes from what we talked about today. Anyways, if you want to join us, there's no better time of the year to get to a conference, right? The first couple weeks in January, get off to a strong start. January 12th, it's at a beautiful resort, the Westin Kierland in Scottsdale, just north of the Phoenix airport, like 20 minutes north of the Phoenix International Airport. We're going to have 2,000 agents and leaders from all over North America. That's right. Our audience size is on track to double from what we had last year. Why are all these events shrinking and ours is going up? Perhaps you should come check it out. If you want the full schedule, you'll see it's in the very last page of your business plan there. Go to gloveru.com/summit. That's gloveru.com/summit. Get your ticket. Use the code 25Q4. That's 25Q4. That stands for the 2025 quarter four. So 25Q4 will get you $100 off. If you're listening to this on the podcast, there you go. I just gave you the code. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. And to everyone else, we're going to get back to our annual coaches retreat. Again, we are live here at the GM World Headquarters, pouring into our coaches so they can pour into you. If we teach them how to live their most unreal life, and we teach our invited guests how to live their most unreal life, then here's what we know. you're going to get the same experience. Again, my name's Jeff Glover from right here in Detroit, Michigan. Thank you for joining us for the fourth quarter business plan. I look forward to seeing you guys sometime soon, but for sure in January at the Live Unreal Summit. See you guys later.